this is Preeti from It's a Pretty Chat. Welcome to my channel. Today we're having an amazing guest on our show, and she is known for her whimsical style of crafting, known for distress inks. She's been crafting for many, many years. She's an awesome teacher. She calls herself the Queen of the Sea. I don't know if you've guessed her yet, but without further wait, here's Jenn Shurkus.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for coming on It's a Pretty Chat. And I'm so happy that you're on this channel.
Thank you so much for having me.
I met Jen the first time in the Creative Journey retreat, which Jen does twice a year. Am I correct?
Yeah, usually it's about twice a year.
Twice a year. And I met her first time, I think it was last spring in Cape Cod. And I have to tell you, Jen is full of energy. She just is full of energy. She's always smiling. Most of all, she's a great person. I really, really like the human behind the art, and she's so much more than just that art. And I'm hoping we can hear that part of you, Jen, today in this little chat.
Yeah.
Starting out, I just want to ask, all of us know Jen to a great extent as an artist. We follow you on Instagrams, on Facebook, and all the social medias out there. Jenn Shurkus is a pretty big name. We know you as a creative person, but I just want to know, or we all want to know, what are you as a person? Who are you as a person, as a human behind this art?
Well, as part of my intro, whenever I open up a class that I'm teaching, I always let people know that I am part mermaid. I've lived on Cape Cod for about 15 years now, and the ocean air has definitely transformed me. I'll never be able to live far from the ocean. I'm also the mom of 3 kitties, Mr. Harley, Gus, and Jack. Some people don't realize I actually have 3 now because Gus and Jack look so similar. They're both black kitties. And then I also have my boyfriend, Chris. We've been together for over 7 years, and he's a true supportive guy for every crazy endeavor that I try next.
Jen, tell us about, how did you start this journey? When did you begin? Was card making something that you always had in mind when you were young? I mean, when did it all begin?
No worries. I've always been creative. As a little girl, I was always drawing posters for my room. I think at one point I was coloring wooden pieces into rainbows and selling them on the side of the road. So I've always been creative, but I went to school for graphic design and fine arts up in New Hampshire. And then I just discovered card making. I think it was like 1998 or 1999. And it just meshed really well with my artistic brain. It was something that I could play with that wasn't on the computer. It was, at that point, I was in college, so I was on the computer a lot, and it was nice to just get away from that and kind of get a little inky and be creative with my hands.
So you would say that going to school for graphic designing and fine arts has influenced a lot with your style, or your style has evolved a lot? How would you describe your style now to when you began?
Yeah, I think if anybody looks back at anything that they created back in the day, they probably think it's horrendous. So if I look at stuff back in the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, no. But always when I'm card making or making any creative projects, I think what I learned in school and just having that artistic background is always in the back of my brain, how to have a cohesive look card, how to make sure things are matching, so that there's good flow on the card, things aren't all crazy all over the place. That's all stuff that we learn in art school, and so I think it is always in the back of my mind, but it's not something that I think of constantly.
Cool. So what would you say your style is like? What would you say, is there a particular style that you follow? Like somebody, for me, for example, I call myself an eclectic designer because I really have no style. So that's an easier way to put it. But do you have something that you would call your style as to be?
I don't really think I have a style either. Can distress inks be a style? I mean, I can't really make a card without using some sort of distress ink, whether it's the regular inks or the oxides. No, I don't really have a style, and that's something that helped out a lot. I used to manage a local store and taught a variety of different classes, and we would want to promote a product that we got in, and I was like, oh, I'll teach with it, because I can go from cutesy, which a lot of people know me from doing all of my lawn fawn stuff, to artsy fartsy, Tim Holtz, Dina Wakley, art journaling. I really can kind of go all over the place. I just kind of go wherever I'm inspired. So I don't really necessarily think I have a style.
Awesome. Awesome. So you just go by your heart. What your heart says, you just lead on.
Exactly.
Jenn, it's been so many years since you started, obviously, and now you've come a far way along. But did you have struggles starting off in the industry that you are in? Or was it just easy? Was it easy, or did you have a hard time getting into the industry?
Yeah. I mean, because I have been in the industry for a long time, there's obviously been challenges throughout the time. I first started teaching stamp classes in New Hampshire. I actually used to manage and do some design work for a local gift shop, and she had a small stamp section, and my boss Adele at the time really encouraged me to teach a beginner stamping class. So I was like, sure. And then I moved to Cape Cod, and I was like, oh, I miss teaching. But I saw out the local store here and approached them into teaching, and then that fell into a managing job. But that was a struggle, kind of putting myself out there and introducing myself to somebody new. I was at that local store for 8.5 years, and then they made the decision to close. And I was like, oh no, my whole life was the paper crafting industry, and I hadn't been doing a whole lot of graphic design. I hadn't been doing any web design, really nothing. So I really didn't know what I was going to do. And so my creative paths actually took me back to my roots, and I did go back to graphic design and web design. I worked at Providence College for a brief amount of time. But when I was working at Providence College, I continued to teach. I found my own places to be able to teach classes. I was still teaching classes at local stores in Massachusetts. So I always worked extra hard to keep that as part of my life. And then I was lucky enough to find a job down here on Cape Cod. So I lived in Rhode Island for 3 years and missed Cape Cod so much. And I found a job down here at Cape Cod Life magazine, where again, I was doing web design and social media, but I was still teaching. That's actually when I really picked up and was teaching, working Monday through Thursday and then teaching almost every weekend. So it was a lot, but it was a struggle where I was like, how can I find the balance? And I just made it work, Of course, you have to sacrifice sleep and maybe hanging out with friends, but it was something that I really, really wanted to do. So, yeah.
Oh, fine. So here's another question with the same struggles. I was as you were talking, I'm thinking, so you said in the past, you went to people and you asked how you could be a part of it or how you could involve. But today everything is shifted. Everything is so social media based. Everything is so tech based. How would you, if you were to be a designer starting now, would there be any change from when you started to now?
I don't really think so, because yeah, sure, I walked into a store and asked, but nowadays send an email and ask. That's how I actually got my relationship with Lawn Fawn. I sent an email to them and asked if I could teach for them at trade shows. I had already been teaching Lawn Fawn classes locally on my own without knowing anybody at Lawn Fawn. But I emailed them and basically introduced myself and asked them if they needed help with classes at trade shows. So even though we are more in a social media world, and not everybody has a local store anymore, I still think it's the same approach. If it's something that you really want to do, it never hurts to ask. And if a company doesn't need you right then, you will probably be in their mind for something future.
Sure. So you're like the Steve Jobs of card making, because there was an interview with Steve Jobs, and there was an interviewer asked him the same question: how did you start? And he said, by asking. The first thing I did was ask. So that's a really valid.
Well, I think that's an honor to be compared to Steve Jobs. So thank you.
No, that's a very valid point, that when you need something, you need to ask. Either the answer could be yes or no, but at least you've done your short of asking. So here's another question. You've been an artist for so long. Do you think art has changed you? And if it has changed you, how?
Oh, for sure. It's given me my job. I mean, I am coming up on 2 years this November where I worked for myself. During the week, I work here in my messy studio that you guys are seeing, working from home. And then every weekend, on average 24 weekends a year, I travel and teach. So if card making didn't come into my life, or art didn't come into my life, I wouldn't be here. I'm not quite sure what I'd be doing, but I'm very thankful that I get to be my own boss, and I get to do something that I love, and I get to be creative on a daily basis. Today alone, I made 5 different cards for upcoming deadlines. Sure, it's pressure, and I'm like, oh my gosh, got to get this done. But if that's the worst kind of pressure I have, then I'll take it for sure.
Well, that's good to know that even the pressure seems to be fun. That's a good place to be, I'm guessing.
Exactly.
So we were talking about creative journey earlier, and I know many of you out there know what creative journey is that Jenn does. But Jenn, do you want to share a bit about how the creative journey developed? I know that's your baby. How did it develop, and when did it start, and the process along it?
I would love to, and I'll try to keep it short, but it is my baby. So I was teaching classes all over New England at local stores. This was starting especially in 2005, 2006. There are quite a few stores in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, even upstate New York. I drove, and then New Hampshire. And then when my store closed and I moved to Providence, another local store in Massachusetts that I consistently taught at for a number of years closed. And I just really was, obviously bummed to lose a local store. I'm a firm believer that they're very important, but I was also really bummed that I was getting to this place where I wasn't seeing my crafty friends, the friends that have been taking my classes for over a decade, and I saw on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So Chris and I were renting a 900 square foot apartment in an old renovated factory building in Providence. It was beautiful. We loved our space. And people continually said, oh, that space looks so inspiring. It looks so creative. And so I looked at Chris and I was like, can I rent some tables and chairs and have my crafty friends over? And he goes, sure. And so that was the first Creative Journey art retreat. I actually called them the loft art retreats back then because it was in my loft.
Yeah.
And we pushed aside furniture and put 3 6-foot tables in this little space. And it was comfy, but everybody knew what they were getting into. I joke, I think that probably 70% of the people came for the first time just to meet my kitty, Mr. Harley, in person. Wow. Not for me, but that's okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of snowballed. I want to say I did 5 or 6 of them at the loft, and people I never met before were just showing up. And it was really, really cool. And that was just from me sharing on social media and word of mouth. And so when we moved to Cape Cod, I was like, oh, I don't know if people are still going to come. I love Cape Cod. But people always see it as kind of a destination that is a little tricky to get to. Being in Providence, we had an airport right there, we had a train station right there, and we had major highways kind of all going through.
Yeah.
So Cape Cod is a little set off. And then I was like, I don't know where I'm going to do it. I don't know anything. But I found Cape Space here on the Cape. Robin had just opened it. It's a co-op working space. And it was all teal, which was perfect for me. And but it was all business orientated. So I kind of sat down with her and I was like, can I host an art retreat here? And I have to give her credit. She's always been really laid back and great to work with. And that's how it started. So now it is 2 days. Some people come 1 day or 2 days. And I went from being able to host 18 people a day to now I host 50 people a day. And it is awesome. I used to do card making and mixed media, but everybody just really likes the card making more. So that's kind of what I'm sticking to for a while. And it's all day card making. We usually make 12 cards. Lunch is provided. I do a little pop-up shop because there aren't any local stores really close by. And then I have amazing sponsors who spoil all the attendees as well. So it's a really, really fun. My next one's coming up in just, I think like a week and a half, November 2nd and 3rd.
So how often do you have, I know you have one in fall and one in spring. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I've usually been doing one in the fall and one in the spring. Yeah.
And then where can people find, do you advertise this all over social media? How do people know about your retreat? How do they come to know about it?
Yeah, so I don't advertise in the sense that I pay any money.
Well, yeah.
But I definitely post everywhere. I do know a lot about social media, so that has been a benefit of mine. So I post a lot on Instagram, Facebook. I have a Facebook group, but the real hub is you can find all the information on my website, which is mylastname.com, so shurkus.com.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know. I'm sure people watching out there, if you have never been to one of these retreats, I really highly recommend you do so. You will not only enjoy what she does, but you'll really enjoy her as a person.
Oh,
And I just want to know, why do you craft?
well, now it pays the bills. No.
Of course.
Again, it's just always been a thing that I have done. My mom and my grandmother were a little crafty, but not really. But I always loved like a coloring book and crayons, or I was always drawing outfits. I thought I was going to be a fashion designer until I sewed my first outfit. And then I was like, oh no, definitely not. I've just always been creative. So I really, really love creating things. I love inspiring others. So that's why I do share so much. I love when somebody is like, wow, that really inspires me to go make something. And then I love teaching because I love when I see the light bulb go off, and it could be for the most simplest thing. Yesterday on my Instagram stories, I was explaining how I use an X-Acto knife to cut out intricate parts of an image, but I cut out those first before I fussy cut out around the edge. And people were like, I got like the mind blown emoji as a response, like multiple times, because people just didn't think of it in that approach. So those are the things that I really love. So I think I'm more inspired right now in my life to create things to inspire and teach others.
Awesome. And so how do you get these inspirations? And not only how do you get these inspirations, but do people inspire you? Are there somebody in your life that inspired you to, first of all, become a crafter? And then also, are there things around you that inspired to do what you do?
Yeah. So as far as like the crafting that I do now and the fact that I'm teaching, I have to say my boss, my very first job out of college, Adele, she said, you should teach a beginner stamping class. And she really encouraged me. And honestly, I've had a lot of great female mentors over my life. Jane, the owner of the store that I used to manage, I had crazy ideas and she always supported them, whether they were for an event for the store or a class or a product I wanted to bring in. She was always very supportive. So that has definitely helped me over the years. But as far as like what inspires me, I'm friends with a lot of crafters and I do peek at what they post and they do inspire me. But for the most part, I kind of keep my head down. I don't really pay attention too much to what everybody's posting or what supplies they're using. New products really inspire me. I love when I get a brand new lawn fawn release. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't make the cards fast enough. So definitely new products inspire me. Being by the ocean inspires me. A lot of my creations are mermaid or ocean based. I kind of joke that if any company comes out with anything ocean, they should just send it to me because I would love to create with it.
Yes.
So yeah, so I don't, and then another, just on another side note, I'm kind of weird where I'll be making one card or maybe even traveling and I'm designing cards in my brain. I used to do that a lot when I managed the store. I'd be checking in product or straightening the aisles and I'd be designing cards in my mind. And then when I'm at my studio table and I go to try to actually make them, they tend to come out the way I had hoped, which is a good thing. But yeah.
Do you ever feel burnt out? I have nothing to give anymore. Do those moments ever come?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
So I don't travel and teach in June, July, or August. The only thing I do is the summer trade show. And it's prepping for the summer trade show is a lot of designs that I have to come up with and getting ready for my fall classes. But I really try to spend a little bit less time in this studio. I joke with people that if they follow me on social media, don't think I quit card making in the summer. I spend a lot of time at the beach, a lot of time with friends, doing things here locally on Cape Cod. And that's something I definitely struggle with. It's really hard when it is your job. And I don't mean this like, oh, boohoo, Jen, because again, I'm so grateful that this is my job, but it is really hard when you have a deadline and you have not even just creations you have to make. You have emails you have to respond to. You have a website you have to update. You have email newsletters to send back. You have emails from stores that you're teaching at to respond to. When you have all of that, and then you have to be like, ooh, let's make a pretty thing. It is definitely a struggle. And it's something, again, going into, 2 years of this, I'm learning how to deal with that. I don't really have an answer of what I'm doing.
So,
But it's definitely tricky. Yeah.
it's good to know for all of us out there who are still learning to be artists and creative. Sometimes for me too, I get frustrated easily. So what do you have to tell all of us out here? We're making cards, we're putting it out in social media, but then either it is you're not getting noticed or you're getting frustrated. How do you calm the frustrations? What is bigger picture? What are the bigger picture one should look at when those frustrations come in?
Yeah. Number one, I really think everybody should be creating for themselves. Even, if a company asks me to design something with their product, I'm still creating it for myself. It's still my style. It's still what the products, obviously their products, but out of those products, what I want to use. Because I think if you're designing or creating to be noticed or to get likes or to get comments, that's just not a good mind space to get into. back in the olden days, before Facebook and Instagram, I've been blogging since 1999. So, and Susan Opal used to always ask me to submit cards to Papercraft magazine. She was always such a cheerleader. She liked what I posted on my blog, but I was so busy managing a store and teaching a lot of classes. And I really was like, I don't need people in North Dakota to see what I'm making. I'm having fun here on Cape Cod. So I just think you just have to remember to do it for yourself. And when you do it for yourself, that allows you for your passion and your excitement to really shine through. And it doesn't seem like a dreaded project you have to do.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
And that's really a great point, guys. I really, really appreciate that, Jen, that doing something that makes you happy is more important than anything else, because when you do it with happiness and your heart is in contentment, you find joy in it, right?
Yep. Yeah. And people notice that joy,
yes.
And that's when they want to see what you're doing,
yes.
see what you're posting. It really does happen that way,
yeah.
Especially when it comes to being creative. I think so.
I think we all need to learn to love our projects first, right? Before anybody else could say something about it. Yeah.
For sure.
So, Jen, it's been so many years. You've been teaching, you've been creating. Do you have any new plans in the future? Or are you going to continue are you going to continue in the same path, or you are coming up with something new? Are you going to change into something else?
I don't really have an answer for that. For the next year or so, I'll definitely still be teaching a lot of classes. I'm grateful that there are a lot of independent stores still out there that want me to teach, which I'm so thankful for that. Not to mention the stores I have been at, they want me back. So that's always a nice compliment. And that definitely keeps me busy. I would love to do more tutorial videos and really share some more on that avenue. I just haven't been able to wrap my brain and my calendar time around that. So that's always in the back of my mind to try to squeeze in, to fit in. But really, I do the 2 art retreats a year. I also do a really big event in March called Crop on the Cape. And I do teach at that, but I run it. It's over 250 paper crafters come to Cape Cod and just work on their projects, but also take classes. So teaching those 3 events really, really keep me on my toes for sure. They keep me out of trouble.
Yes, absolutely. Other than making cards, do you have other hobbies? Do you do anything other than making cards? I mean, card making is your profession. If you have a profession, we need to have a hobby, right? So card making is your profession. So what's your hobby?
Is being a mermaid a hobby? No.
We'll make that
definitely. Okay, so being a mermaid is one. I love to read. I go through spurts where I force myself to go to bed at a reasonable time and read before bed, because I find I sleep so much better when I do. Yeah. I read a lot in the summer as well when I'm sitting at the beach. Really, besides that, I don't have any other hobbies. Enjoying Cape Cod. When I was away from here for 3 years and moved back, I promised myself when I moved back, I would really spend time enjoying what we have here. And there are so many awesome events and venues and restaurants. And so I have a really great group of friends, and we try to live it up and enjoy it as much as we can. And so my other hobby is really just being with friends. I get really energized by just having shenanigans, being silly, and just laughing with them.
Yeah, it's always nice to have being energized by something when you are doing the same thing on and on again. Being energized is a good thing. Jen, I remember you telling that you travel a lot with your work, and you do you teach classes in different stores. do people from different states know about these classes? How do they come to know that you're coming to a particular state and you'll be doing these classes? Where can they find information for that?
Yeah. So I travel all over North America and I teach lawn fawn card classes. So lawn fawn's really great about shouting from the rooftops where I'm going. I have a great email newsletter that I do to notify people of my classes, which you can subscribe on my website. And then I always have my class schedule on my website as well. And then, of course, if you have a local store, they also promote the classes. And you can always let them know if you're interested in having me come teach, because sometimes I haven't had to really do any advertising with stores because of word of mouth. Again, there's so many stores that are interested in having me teach, but it's always good that if you have a local store and you want me to teach, you could just let them know about this Jenn Shurkus girl that you follow online.
Sure. Just as we wrap this little chat, I just wanted to know, do you have some kind of advice for all the crafters out there? How can you motivate them? What are a few things that you can tell them about crafting, or what should keep them motivated?
Well, it's just paper. Paper is not really that expensive. So stamp your image, color it however you want to try coloring it. Try a inky technique, whatever. And if it doesn't work out, you throw it away and you try again. There's nothing that you can do in your lifetime that you didn't have to practice to learn how to do it. So, and we're lucky enough that paper is inexpensive. Granted, our other supplies maybe aren't, but those are reusable. So I would say just try it. And I talk a lot about this in class. I think we are way too hard on ourselves nowadays. We think everything has to be perfect. And it really doesn't. And I talk about this in my Facebook group where I share a lot of stuff, but I also encourage other people to share their creations too, because you might think what you made isn't great, but it's going to inspire somebody else. Many different ways. It can inspire them because it might remind them that they have that stamp set that they forgot that they bought months ago, or the color combination, or maybe they'll just say, hey, what coloring medium did you use to color that? It's of course just eye candy. You see it as all the imperfections, or maybe you had a picture in your mind and it didn't turn out that way, and you see all of those things. But when you share it with either who's the recipient of your card or maybe online, those people don't see those things. So don't be so hard on yourself. Sitting at your studio table with all of your supplies and not creating anything isn't getting you anywhere. So I really want people to use their stuff and just play.
I remember just earlier you talking about crop on the cape. Now, is that very similar to Creative Journey as well?
So it's actually quite different. Crop on the Cape celebrated its 20th year last year. The store I used to manage is the one that always ran it. And then 2 years ago, I purchased the event from my previous boss. So it is an event where it is like an old school crop back in the day where people would go to scrapbook, but we have people come and work on their own projects, scrapbooking, card making. Sometimes we have people just organizing photos or knitting. And I always joke that I see some people bring in their whole craft room and just socialize the whole weekend and then bring their whole craft room back out again. And that's totally fine too. So it's an event to work on your own projects. And we have a lot of different vendors that sell product there, massages, games, giveaways, goodies, all kinds of stuff. And then on top of that, if people want to purchase additional classes, they can do that. I always teach a lawn fawn card making class. My friend Sharon teaches card making. And then we also have people teaching mixed media, home decor items. We have all kinds of fun classes lined up for this coming year.
Awesome. And then will you be mentioning about that in your newsletter as well when you send out newsletters to people?
Yep. My email newsletter is the best way to kind of keep in touch with me, because I understand not everybody's going to see every social media post or every blog post, but I usually send one email a month, and that recaps kind of what I have going on, what I've shared online. And so Crop on the Cape is March 19th to the 22nd, 2020, but registration actually is coming up really quick. Registration will open up early November. And in the 2 years that I've been running the event does sell out. So it's something, if somebody's interested, they want to kind of sign up sooner than later. And, but that's where they'll be able to see all about the event, all the classes that are offered. And they can always shoot me an email if they have any questions too.
So those of you watching us today, if you're really interested in doing any of her classes, Jenn's classes, or knowing just what's happening in Jenn's life, in her creative life, the link to her email subscription is down below in my description box. So go ahead, link there, click there, and you should be able to subscribe to her newsletter and be updated with everything. Right, Jenn?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenn, for joining us today. I really, really appreciate your time and your really wise and motivated words of wisdom, and your ideas and your thoughts and what inspires you. I really, really am. I'm really thankful that you could be a part of this and share your heart with us. And we'll definitely be seeing more of you everywhere, and hopefully we can see each other once again soon.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And again, I hope I see you in real life again soon.
Sure. Thank you, Jenn. Take care.